Good afternoon. Today is January 3rd, and it is the 9th day of the 12 days of Articles in Review. My name is Mary Coughlin. I am the president and founder of Caring Essentials Collaborative, and today's article is by Ma et al. It was published in the Journal of Perinatology in 2015. The title of the paper is Prone Positioning Decreases Cardiac Output and Increases Systemic Vascular Resistance in Neonates. Fascinating paper, and really the first of its kind. What this group of researchers did is they performed or completed a prospective study looking at cardiovascular indicators in a cohort of stable premature infants. They looked at a total of 30 infants with a gestational age around 35 weeks, plus or minus a few weeks, that were hemodynamically stable and medically stable as well. These guys were admitted for various diagnoses to include respiratory distress syndrome, prematurity, hypoglycemia, low birth weight, and feeding intolerance. When they were enrolled in the study, they had already resolved their initial diagnostic or medical condition and were then eligible for the study. So what they did is they looked at continuous heart rate, they looked at stroke volume, they looked at cardiac output, they looked at skin blood flow or perfusion, and systemic vascular resistance. And what they did is they positioned the infants initially supine. They took all of this data. Then they positioned them prone for a period of 10 minutes, looked at all of this data, and then they repositioned them back to supine and collected the data. So each positioning epoch, if you will, was 10 minutes long. So again, just an investigatory study to see, does this matter at all? They presented a little kind of background talking about prone positioning. There are some cardiovascular perturbations observed in adults, but no one has investigated whether or not these same hemodynamic variables are affected by prone position in neonates, thus the study. And so what they did is after they did their due diligence and got permission, they present some details around the equipment that they use to collect these cardiovascular indicators, but the proof is in the pudding. And when they performed their study, what they uncovered is that for pretty much all of these infants, when they were positioned prone, they had a decrease in their stroke volume, cardiac output, their peripheral perfusion, the skin blood flow, and they all demonstrated an increase in their systemic vascular resistance once they were put to prone. Once they were then repositioned supine, all of those indicators returned to their baseline. What was interesting is apparently when adults are placed in the prone position and their cardiac output is impaired, their heart rate goes up. And there was no indication that was happening in this particular patient population. And the researchers went on to suggest some various reasons for this observation. It could be related to most of the infants were in a sleep state or a sleepy state when they were doing these positioning changes, and they felt that might actually contribute to some decreased sympathetic activity. Again, the cohort was premature. These were premature people. So was there a component of autonomic immaturity that was hindering a heart rate response to the challenges to the cardiac output? But basically what the study uncovered is despite the limitations that it was small, there's definitely an impact. And so as any good research team does, they recommend that further investigation be pursued to really fully understand the effects of positioning on hemodynamic and hemodynamic stability and cardiovascular function. And what they suggest is, based on some of the other stuff that we already understand about positioning. For example, prone positioning has been demonstrated to have a positive impact on oxygenation in premature infants with chronic lung disease and also infants with respiratory failure. It's also been noted to improve gastric emptying and reduce feeding intolerance. But on the flip side, it is also, prone positioning has also been associated with reductions in cerebral oxygenation. So what these guys suggest is that future studies using comprehensive cardiovascular monitoring look at all of these components. So look at cerebral oxygenation, respiratory changes, sleep states, along with longer periods of positioning in supine and prone, and then returns to baseline to really fully understand the hemodynamic influence that prone positioning has on this very vulnerable population. I think what this, obviously more studies need to be done, but I think we also need to be prudent in then how we use the prone position. There's some good evidence now talking about, when you're placing the infant in prone, again, the influence of gravity just kind of compresses them down onto the bed surface, and they've very underdeveloped musculoskeletal system. And so a lot of times as the gravity is pushing on them, they end up going into this, extreme head rotation, and they're pressed like a pancake against the bed. And so you can understand why that extreme angle of the head as they're unable to support themselves is going to impinge on the cerebral blood flow and venous drainage as well. So we can understand how that could influence things, but what else is going on? They questioned the pressure on the intrathoracic cavity of the prone position. Is that influencing some of these hemodynamic changes? And again, it's still a bit of an unknown, but for us, the takeaway is, we need to be more thoughtful about how we're positioning these infants. Supine, has its challenges as well. Again, the same phenomenon with gravity is flattening these little individuals out. Unless we're supporting rounded shoulders and pelvic tilt and flexion, then supine could just be all out there as well. So being prepared, because of course we have to balance these decisions with what are the medical liabilities that the infant has associated with their admission diagnosis, their medical condition or surgical condition. So, are we able to optimize sideline position where we can really support a lot of these, the flexion and a good alignment and stuff, but be mindful that we may want to look at the sidelining position in addition to supine and prone as we investigate the influence of these different postural orientations on the infant's, cerebral perfusion, cardiovascular integrity, GI function, everything, everything matters. That's really what all of this is about, right? What all of my work is about is that everything matters. And just because we don't know how it matters doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. And we need to have that quizzical mind. We need to ask those critical questions. Is what I'm doing right now really in the best interest for the patient that I'm serving? So that's it for today's article. I've got the annotation right here, so I'm going to plug the video into the annotation and post it up on Facebook. Again, I hope you're enjoying this, you're finding it clinically relevant. I look forward to your feedback, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. I got a wicked good article to share with you tomorrow, and so that's it. Have a nice evening, and take care and care well.